Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. We have an orchid that would be impossible to replace that won't grow. So it's been tried in a pot, it's been tried in a different media in a pot, it's been tried on a mount. And until a short while ago it was 2 bulbs, and the old bulb without the leaf rotted. I cut it off, and I think I may have saved that rot getting into the rest of the plant. Remains to be seen. So didn't work on the mount, so now we go for what a lot of people think of as a standard rescue procedure, which is to put a plant in moss. So that's what's happening now. So it's coming off its mount. I suspect there will be no roots, or virtually no roots, although something's hanging on. Oh, that's fishing line. Well, yes it would, wouldn't it? It has all been cut, it should all come off. There we go. Now it looks like we've got quite a lot of rhizome on here that's old. Is it old? Yeah, it's old and separate as well. So you know, this has been on this mount a while trying to recover. And given that this is zombie moss, that makes the moss quite old. Now that could be inhibiting growth. It's difficult to say, but this one just hasn't tried. Now these roots are firm, so they don't appear to be rotten. Get the sheaths off. Right, so what we're looking for is a new growth. That would be good. Without the new growth, there's nothing going to happen to this. It's down to a poor quality leaf, single bulb that's not shriveled. That is not a shriveled bulb, so it's not desiccated, and some manky roots, some of which can come off. With what I'm going to do with it, it doesn't really matter if there's a few manky roots. It won't affect it, not to any extent. Just taking the loose ends off, basically. That'll do. Oh, there's that one, I suppose. So it's not a totally lost root system, but it's not exactly healthy. But it's there. So in theory, that would explain why this bulb hasn't totally desiccated. It's because it is getting something. Not much, but something. Something's better than nothing. Because when it's only got one leaf to support, it's only a top up, isn't it? But it needs to get some go, or it's going to have to go. So we're going to do the fluffy moss treatment. Somebody asked, what was I potting? Oh, I was playing with the Miltoniopsis and given them a go in here because they wouldn't grow. And I had said in the past that I was going to have a go at potting something, some odont types, the way that Jim Durrant from McBean's actually showed in his video, which was just folding the moss in the side of the pot. And I couldn't do it at the time of the chat because I didn't have any moss. Because I'd decided I wasn't using moss anymore, I'd given it all to Lynn. So I was waiting to get some back, which would have been at the show. That's the Wessex show a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, not long ago. But as it happened, I got the Welsh Moss, this stuff. And I decided that wherever I would have used the zombie moss, you know, the dried sphagnum, I would use this instead as live moss. It's fluffy, it's got plenty of air in it, it's unlikely to go off on the grounds it's alive, so it makes quite a lot of sense to me to use this. So consequently I didn't get the zombie moss off of Lynn. In fact, she had a load of this off of me. So the swap, or whatever I was going to do, went the other way round basically. So we've got some, not firmed, but squashed up a little bit to get some of the air out as a base for this plant. And then we're going to stand the roots in it without breaking any. And then we're just going to put some more round in such a way that it'll support the plant and just hold it upright and sit on top of those roots. I was going to say preferably without the grass, but the grass will just pull out. If it decides to start growing, this grass that's in it, then it'll just pull out a strand at a time, like that. Like that one just did. Like what that just did. So this is the idea with this plant. Moss is said to be a very good medium to encourage roots to grow. Yeah? As long as it's got air and it's not all squashed up and compacted, I'll go along with that. But moss can be its own worst enemy if it's squashed down. And the one sure way with the zombie moss, the dried sphagnum, New Zealand moss, got many names. The problem with that is when it's not got loads of roots in it and you pour water in it, you compact it. Just the act of pouring water over it squashes it down. At which point you start shutting the air out, yeah, and it becomes compacted. And then it's not as good. As I said, it can be its own worst enemy because you shut the air out, it's not a good environment for growing roots in anymore, whereas it once was. This stuff, you can't do that. You'd have a job to compact this and remove all the air because it's so coarse. So there we go. That's all it's getting. It's enough to support the plant. The roots are covered, poor that they are, and that's it, that's all it's getting. And I'm not going to put the tag back in. I'll show you why. Because it's faded, can't flip and read it. So I'll look that up in my notes and write a new one. And now all we can do is hope, which is all we do with any plant that's just not growing, is just hope that it'll pick up. And that the change in media will, you know, kick it off. Now somebody else asked about this moss. The fact that it's nice and coarse and there's plenty of air, and I'm reliably told by Marius, who's been using it an awful lot longer than I have, that roots absolutely love it. They thrive in this environment. So you know, even if you plan on putting it in some different media later on, it's a good media to get a root system going again. So that's what we're going to try. But somebody asked, surely if you keep pouring water on it, it would compact it. I don't plan on watering pots with this moss in by pouring it in over the top. I plan on, you know my drip trays that I use, I plan on putting the water in the drip trays. Yeah, and let the moss soak it up. So the moss stays very moist but doesn't lose its air. So that's the plan. And that gets round that problem. So there we go. Effectively the pop-up will show the name of it because I can't show the tag, can I? And we'll see how it does now. That's the third plant that's gone in this pot. I will say this on this video because it's relatively short. The two Miltoniopsis that I did this with, there were some blotches on some of the leaves, and somebody asked, could that be a fungus or something that's stopping those two plants growing well? And it got me thinking, and it dawned on me that there is a video. I started a little series to do with those three Miltoniopsis that all came from the same place. And when I repotted them and I cut off some of the old pseudobulbs, I was 80 to 90% certain that they actually had Fusarium. Now that was treated, you know, multiple applications of systemic fungicide, it was treated, but it's always there in the old part of the plant. And the idea is that you treat it and stop it so that new growth can push away. Well, it hasn't had chance, has it? So it is remotely possible that that's flared up again. So those two plants have just been treated again with a systemic fungicide, and they'll get done in 10 days time because I've got a ready-made spray. So it's not a big deal. It did suddenly dawn on me that I was pretty sure those had Fusarium, and if that's flared up again, because I haven't got strong healthy growth, that would grow away from it, the idea being that eventually you repot and cut the old part off, and that's it, gone. Well, I haven't got to that stage yet, so that was a just in case and a thought. But yeah, Oncidium spot, well, some people call it a virus. It isn't a virus really. It's a fungus infection that leaves spots on the leaves, and Oncidiums are very prone to it. Zygos can get it. There are, it's not unique to Oncidiums, but it's just spottiness on the leaves, and a fungicide will cure it. Or let's put it this way, it won't get rid of the spots once they're there, but it'll stop you getting any more. But it is something that might need repeat treatments a couple of times a year perhaps. And that's a surface infection, so it doesn't have to be a systemic. You can use any sort of fungicide really. It doesn't have to be strong either. It's a very, very mild infection that leaves spots on the leaves. It's not a big deal, and it's unsightly more than anything, because it won't kill the plant. It's a mild infection. It's not a big deal. Right, so that's that one done. Cross your fingers basically, because the chances of ever getting this again are zero. This came from a guy in Peru, and even if I could find the basic Oncidium species, to actually find this variety with the named variety of this type, I would say is almost impossible. So this is quite rare. The actual species itself isn't rare, Oncidium varicosum. It's not a rare plant, but the named variety of it is. So we'll see how we do. Hopefully it will pull through. It can't do any worse than it was doing on the mount, can it? Which was absolutely nothing. And it's lost 2 bulbs since it's been on that mount. One quite recently, and that was a rot setting in. It's where it's just not growing. It's just, subject to rot because it won't grow. It won't get a new root system, and it won't get some leaves to feed itself. So it's in a very poor state. We'll see how it does.